This morning, hold your horses. No interest rate hike for now, but the next one is coming and soon. Courage from family and friends as a bus crash victim is laid to rest. King Charles prepares for his second coronation in Scotland. And Ash Barty announces the birth of her first child, her beautiful boy.
This is 7 News with Edwina Bartholomew.
Good morning. Mortgage holders have been given a timeout from the Reserve Bank with interest rates kept on hold this month. Political reporter Rachel Baxter is in Canberra. Rachel, morning. Some good news for borrowers, but we're being told to be on guard for more rate hikes ahead.
Oh, we are, Eddie. Most economists believe there will be another 2 rate hikes before the end of the year, and that's because inflation is still higher than the Reserve Bank would like. Consumer spending is still higher than they want to, which we know can fan the inflation fire. Economists also believe yesterday's decision to hold the cash rate at 4.1%, which is still the highest it's been in 11 years, was so the central bank can get a clearer picture of how the economy is tracking before inflicting more rate pain in 4 weeks' time. It's also concerned that another rate hike could really risk a serious downturn or recession in the next 6 to 12 months. We've already started to see the economy slow sharply, possibly heading into a negative pace in the months ahead. So the RBA will be watching that trend closely. But overall, good news for mortgage holders yesterday, but the pain doesn't necessarily end here, Eddie.
I'll hold on to it for now. Thank you, Rachel. Melbourne has been struck by another earthquake overnight, this time a 2.4 magnitude tremor. It happened around 1:30 a.m. The epicentre was in Pakenham in the city's southeast. There are no reports of injuries or any significant damage, but some people reported their homes were shaken during the quake. The groom who lost 10 friends in the Hunter Valley bus crash on his wedding night has bravely spoken at one of the funerals. Mitchell Gaffney joined friends and family to honour 29-year-old Zach Bray, a mining engineer and cancer survivor who he met on the footy field and adopted the nickname Labrador.
They're pretty smart dogs. They're extremely lovable, but no matter what they do it with that big goofy smile. That was the first impression he made, and it still holds true.
More than $1 million has been raised for the victims and families of those involved in the crash, with more than $460,000 already distributed to the families. The New South Wales police officer accused of tasering a great-grandmother in her nursing home, who later died in hospital, is about to face court for the first time. Christian White faces 3 charges after allegedly tasering 95-year-old Claire Nowland, causing her to fall and hit her head. A court mention is scheduled at the Cooma local court today, but it's unclear if the senior constable will be in attendance or if his lawyer will be appearing on his behalf. Health, education, jobs and housing will be the 4 top focus areas the Indigenous Voice to Parliament will be asked to provide advice on. That's according to the Indigenous Affairs Minister, Linda Burney. She'll use a speech in Canberra today to hose down concerns from critics of the referendum, including the extent of influence the Voice will have on Parliament, and outline reasons why she thinks Australians should vote yes for an Indigenous voice. A date for the referendum hasn't been set, but will be held between October and December. Well, King Charles is set to celebrate his ascension to the throne once again with his Scottish coronation. The day's events will involve a royal procession starting from the Palace of Holyrood House before attending the National Service of Thanksgiving at St Giles Cathedral. There he will be presented with the Honours of Scotland, the country's crown jewel. The King and Queen will be joined by Will and Kate for the ceremony. A quick check of sport now. A rejuvenated Cody Walker knows exactly the role he needs to play for the Blues in State of Origin 3 this time next week. The 5'8" has been recalled to help produce points for New South Wales after failing in games 1 and 2, need we be reminded, against the Maroons.
There'll be different times where I'd lose my as people would say. The team depends on that calm head, and I've focused on that this year.
The Maroons are searching for their first clean sweep since 2010. Checking Wednesday's weather for you now. Around the capital's early showers and a top of 24 in Brisbane, mostly sunny and 21 in Sydney, partly cloudy and 14 in Canberra, partly cloudy and a top of 15 in Melbourne, cloudy and 14 in Hobart, partly cloudy and 17 in Adelaide, some showers easing in 16 degrees in Perth and mostly sunny and 32 in Darwin. Next on 7 Early News, Ash Barty's greatest triumph. The tennis champion announces the arrival of her first child. And the White House evacuated after a suspicious powder is found. We're live to the US for the latest details. The stories we're following on the early news this morning. Interest rates have been kept on hold, but mortgage holders are being warned it could be a brief reprieve, with more rate hikes likely in a bid to help tame inflation. Newlywed Mitchell Gaffney has spoken for the first time since the Hunter Valley bus tragedy, remembering his friend Zach Bray during a funeral service in Sydney. Minister for Indigenous Australians Linda Burney is set to give a major speech in Canberra today, outlining her vision for the Voice to Parliament. And King Charles prepares for his second coronation in Scotland, where he'll be presented with a second crown. 18 months since she put down the racket, Australian tennis champion Ash Barty has given birth to her first child. The 26-year-old shared the news on social media, posting this photo, writing, "Our beautiful boy, welcome to the world, Hayden." Ash announced she was pregnant in January after marrying long-term partner Gary in Queensland last year. Health workers across New South Wales have issued an ultimatum to the state government to pay up or pay the price. The health union has rejected an offer of a 4% salary increase, demanding a better deal by the end of the week. It wants 6.5%, threatening industrial action from Monday. The White House has undergone a major evacuation after the Secret Service discovered suspicious white powder during a routine sweep of the building. Let's go live to US correspondent Marley Hogan. Marley, the powder is currently being tested.
Eddie, good morning. Well, initial tests on this white powder have come back positive for cocaine. The Secret Service did find this white powder in an area in the West Wing on Sunday evening. They have declined to say exactly how much was found or how it was packaged, but it has been sent off for further testing. Now, it did prompt a brief evacuation of the White House at an elevated security level until they were able to clear this white substance. The US President Joe Biden was not at the White House at the time, but it has prompted a wider investigation looking into exactly how this white powder, suspected of being cocaine, made it into the White House in the first place. Eddie?
Indeed, thank you, Miley. 7 people have been injured, 3 critically, in a car ramming attack on a shopping strip in Tel Aviv. Israeli police say a 20-year-old Palestinian driver jumped out and started stabbing victims. He was then shot dead by officers. Palestinian militant group Hamas has claimed responsibility for the attack, saying it was in response to one of Israel's biggest military operations in decades, where at least 9 Palestinians were killed and dozens more injured during raids in the occupied West Bank. At least 31 people have been injured in a Russian shelling attack in Ukraine. The explosives struck the northeastern Kharkiv region. 9 children were among those wounded in the attack, including 2 infants aged 10 and 12 months old. At least several apartments were also damaged and multiple cars destroyed. Multiple mass shootings have marked a devastating start to America's 4th of July celebrations. 5 men were killed, and 2 children injured in separate shootings in Philadelphia. Police say 2 suspects are now in custody and that the attacks are believed to be random. In Texas, 3 people were killed and 8 wounded in an attack at a local festival. Detectives are still searching for the gunman in that case. The Princess of Wales didn't let the rain dampen her spirit, stepping out for day 2 of Wimbledon. Dressed for the occasion, Kate donned a mint green blazer paired with a tennis-inspired pleated white skirt. As play began on centre court, she was seated in the royal box, where she was met with a standing ovation. She was also joined by tennis legend Roger Federer, who's had a busy few days, who was honoured in a special ceremony following his retirement from the sport last year. Well, his birth was traumatic, but to look at him now, you wouldn't know it. A baby gorilla born 9 months ago is doing very well at Mogo Zoo on the New South Wales south coast, thanks to a skilled medical team and a very special bond.
Say hello to little Caius. The curious baby gorilla is 9 months old. He sucks his thumb and a dummy, wears a nappy and loves the camera. You wouldn't know it now, but just a few months ago there were fears he'd never take another breath.
Could you put a nasogastric tube down a baby gorilla? And I said, Excuse me?
That's what these midwives were asked to do after a traumatic birth. Kaius developed sepsis pneumonia. A team of specialists was tasked with bringing him back to life, something they'd only done with human newborns.
And then he opened his eyes and we'd won.
From there, Chad Staples took on the role of parent.
Then you realise just how similar we are to our great ape cousins.
Chad must share even more DNA with Kaius than the rest of us. They are inseparable.
It's just amazing to have been part of this section of his journey.
At his worst, Kaius was 2.2 kilograms. One day he'll be 220. Before that, Chad will hand the reins over to Kaius's surrogate mother, Auntie Gian.
She's absolutely fascinated with him.
But Uncle Chad will never be far away. Tom Saker, 7 News.
What a wonderful story. Checking your finance news now. The Dow Jones is trading 10 points higher this morning. The Nasdaq is up 28. In London, the FT 100 fell 7 points and Germany's DAX lost 41. Closer to home, Japan's Nikkei closed 330 points lower. Hong Kong's Hang Seng rose 109 points. The All Ords and the ASX 200 were both in the green. On the commodities market, gold is trading at $1,933 an ounce. Oil is $71 a barrel. The Aussie dollar is buying 66 US cents, 96 Japanese yen and $1.08 New Zealand. Next on 7 Early News, a murder breakthrough. An Adelaide woman charged with poisoning her elderly parents 1 year apart. And Australian doctors with a genetic breakthrough that could prevent blindness. The stories we're following on the Early News this morning. Interest rates have been kept on hold, but mortgage holders are being warned it could be a brief reprieve with more rate hikes likely in a bid to tame inflation. Newlywed Mitchell Gaffney has spoken for the first time since the Hunter Valley bus tragedy, remembering his friend Zach Bray during a funeral service in Sydney. Minister for Indigenous Australians Linda Burney is set to give a major speech in Canberra today outlining her vision for the Voice to Parliament. And King Charles prepares for his second coronation in Scotland, where he'll be presented with a second crown. A woman has been charged with 2 counts of murder, accused of poisoning her elderly parents to death in Adelaide. Police allege she deliberately gave her mother and father a lethal overdose of prescription medication 1 year apart. A motive has not yet been established. The 62-year-old is expected to face court today. The personal details of campers who have booked a site through the Victorian Government's new system have been put at risk. Customers who secured a spot discovered they had received information belonging to other guests, including names and addresses. The site has been shut down and Parks Victoria has issued an apology. The parents of a deceased AFLW player have received vital answers. Autopsy results revealing Heather Anderson had the degenerative brain disease CTE, making her the first female athlete in the world to be diagnosed with the condition. CTE has symptoms similar to depression and Alzheimer's. The 28-year-old had been playing contact sports since she was 5. Experts say a conversation is needed about changing the rules for children. Australian researchers have fresh hope they can prevent people going blind from the eye disease glaucoma. They've made a genetic breakthrough which could lead to early detection and also new treatments.
Lines and numbers that are meaningless to most, but are exactly what researchers have been looking for.
This discovery we're reporting now is a major leap.
In a global study, researchers from QIMR Berghofer Institute identified 300 genes linked to glaucoma. The disease damages the eye, slowly robbing someone of their sight. 300,000 Australians have glaucoma. Half don't know it yet. This breakthrough could lead to a simple new diagnosis.
Glaucoma is very highly genetic, and so a genetic test has a lot of promise.
Po-Ling Tan was diagnosed with glaucoma in her early 50s.
There was already loss of peripheral vision.
She has a family history. Her brother has it, so does her daughter. But she has hope for her grandchildren.
They're 4 and 7. By the time they get to 14 and 17, maybe these tests will be widely available.
The research also identified drugs currently on the market which could be repurposed to target glaucoma, including one currently given to diabetics. It means new treatments might not be far away.
Volunteers are needed for another study. You can sign up on the QIMR Berghofer website.
If we get to 10,000, that would be amazing. That would help us develop a more accurate test.
Aiming to one day see a world without this cruel disease. Laura Dimmick, 7 News.
To sport now, the Queensland Maroons captain Daly Cherry Evans understands the enormity of next Wednesday night as they search for a clean sweep of the State of Origin series. 5,000 Queenslanders showed their support in Cairns at their annual Fan Day. The Maroons haven't won 3-0 since way back in 2010.
This opportunity has taken me and probably most of my teammates our whole Origin career to be involved in.
His coach Brad Fittler understands his job too, and it's in danger if they lose at a core stadium. Alastair Clarkson could return to North Melbourne in the coming weeks as he continues to take mental leave after the Hawthorn racism saga. The Kangaroos haven't won a game since he stood himself down. That was after round 9.
Just chatted to him a few times and he seems like he's doing really well. So, yeah, I'm just pumped to be able to catch up with him, talk footy and, get the team back on track.
Midfielder Will Phillips is expected to play against the Cats on Sunday despite copping a knock from Paul Curtis at training. Well, rain has delayed the majority of matches on day 2 at Wimbledon, with Alex de Minaur, Alexei Popyrin, Jason Kubler and Darius Seville all having their matches cancelled. There was play on centre court for one of the game's greats in the house. Third seed Elena Rybakina came from a set down to beat American veteran Shelby Rogers. World number 1 Carlos Alcaraz breezed through his first round as well.
An emphatic display from the number 1 seed, Carlos Alcaraz.
The washed out games will be rescheduled for this evening. For a second day in a row, Caleb Ewan's come within inches of winning a stage at the Tour de France. The Aussie avoided 3 crashes in the final metres, making his way to the front, but was pipped just on the line by Belgium Jasper Philipsen.
Carnage on the race circuit. Caleb is coming. It's Philipsen. It's a photo. We'll wait with bated breath again.
Well, that was close. It's Philipsen's second straight stage win. Adam Yates retained the yellow jersey. Townsville Supercars fans can expect much closer racing this weekend, with the Ford Mustang has given a new aerodynamic package to help close the gap with the Chevrolets. The Gen 3 Blue Badgers have struggled this season with only the 1 win.
It's not going to be spread out. It's going to be, lots of passing, lots of overtaking, plenty of action.
Brodie Kostecki leads the championship by 59 points over teammate Will Brown. You can catch the Townsville 500 live on 7 this weekend. Well, how's this for a hitchhiker? A passenger has captured the moment a curious snake caught a ride on a car bonnet. This was on the New South Wales far north coast. Unfazed by the high speed, it made its way down the side of the car then, eventually coming eye to eye with the person behind the camera in the passenger seat. Thankfully, it didn't make its way inside. Those windows were very firmly up. Next on 7 Early News, a closer look at how the weather's shaping up in your part of the country. Here are the stories we're following on the early news this morning. Interest rates have been kept on hold, but mortgage holders are being warned it could be a brief reprieve, with more rate hikes likely in a bid to help tame inflation. Newlywed Mitchell Gaffney has spoken for the first time since the Hunter Valley bus tragedy, remembering his friend Zach Bray during a funeral service in Sydney. Minister for Indigenous Australians Linda Burney is set to give a major speech in Canberra today, outlining her vision for the voice to Parliament. And King Charles prepares for his second coronation in Scotland, where he'll be presented with a second crown. A teenager accused of a terrifying stabbing rampage in Brisbane has been granted bail. Let's go live to Georgie Chumley in Brisbane. Georgie, police were opposed to his release.
Good morning, Eddie. It's left family members of one of the victims incredibly upset after finding out that this 17-year-old has been released on bail after allegedly being involved in a masked rampage, a stabbing rampage in Fortitude Valley in the early hours of Sunday morning. It's alleged that he was with a group of 4 other men, that they were wearing balaclavas when they randomly targeted young men leaving nightclubs in the early hours of Sunday morning. The victims include 2 21-year-olds and a 23-year-old, all sustaining serious injuries. Thankfully, they're currently in a stable condition. This 17-year-old was charged with grievous bodily harm, with robbery with violence, as well as stealing. It's alleged that he stole a necklace off one of the victims, but still he was released on bail. Police are looking into their legal options. Eddie?
All right, we're following that story closely in Sunrise. Thank you, Georgie. Taking a look at the weather around the country for you now. A broad trough fed by tropical moisture is bringing rain to eastern Queensland, eastern New South Wales and Victoria. A front and trough is bringing showers, strong winds and some storms to southwest WA, and a high is bringing mostly dry conditions elsewhere. Around the capitals, early showers, a top of 24 in Brisbane, mostly sunny, and 21 in Sydney, partly cloudy and 14 in Canberra, partly cloudy, top of 15 in Melbourne, cloudy and 14 in Hobart, partly cloudy, 17 in Adelaide, showers easing and 16 in Perth, and mostly sunny and 32 in Darwin. And that's 7 Early News.